So I'm just going to give you an overview of the session that we have planned today. I'm going to do some introductions to the team through this presentation, so you're aware of who you may be coming into contact with and who you may be able to access on the team. I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the purpose of the whole See for Yourself programme, so there's a bit of context, and then an overview of the residencies themselves, and then the application process within that. As I mentioned, we'll come on to a Q&A at that point, but please do at any point when a question arises to you, pop it in our Q&A function and we can go through those towards the end. So I'm Hannah, Chief Executive of Plymouth Culture. We are the lead organisation for this programme of work. So I'm overseeing the See for Yourself programme. I'm doing that alongside colleagues Rob Bowman, who's our senior creative producer, has overall responsibility for the commissioning process and framework, as well as the delivery of our key artistic commissions across the programme. He is supported through Ellen Booth, who is our producer, and will be working directly with artists to deliver their programmes of work across the 4 years. And then Hope Norman, who is our project officer, is supporting all aspects of administration and support on the programme, and will be a key point of contact within communications and delivery. So the See for Yourself programme is a partnership that we've established with the National Marine Park, which is established here in Plymouth. It is led as a funded project through the Plymouth City Council. And what we're really looking to do is to harness the potential of arts and culture to really engage audiences and help them to reconnect to the sea, but also to place and their cultural identity as part of that. We are delivering that as a series of commissions and opportunities, one of which we're going to speak about today. And we really want to make sure that what we're doing through those commissions and those opportunities is to enable people to reconnect, to build audiences who have a relationship with the ocean, and for that to mean something within our ocean city. The full programme is funded through both the Heritage Lottery Fund and Arts Council Place Partnership. Those are our two core funders. We also have support and in-kind contributions from other partners, including Plymouth City Council and the National Marine Park, and cultural organisations Real Ideas, Arts University Plymouth, University of Plymouth, The Box, and Theatre Royal Plymouth. So the artist residencies, this is the first one that we're launching. We hope there will be more in the future. So we have 3 available for the 2025-2026 period of time. The purpose is really about enabling artists to develop their practice, as well as those artists working with communities and in communities to build their understanding of the National Marine Park, helping them to engage with the opportunities that both that presents and the cultural programme presents. We know that a lot of individuals and communities have access barriers to access, and we're really interested in how particularly arts and culture might unlock some of those barriers. We want this to be a co-creation process, and so the importance of working with and within the communities we will talk about a little bit later. And it is a reminder that this is a creative digital programme, so we will need to see digital inputs and outputs throughout the programme, and that is true of the residencies as well, and we will talk about that in a little bit. This particular opportunity is available only to artists based in Devon and Cornwall. We wanted to make a commitment to investing funds and creating opportunities locally, and this is one way in which we're doing that. You do need to be 18 or over and not in full-time education. We can work with any art form for this particular residency. As I mentioned, there is a requirement around digital outputs, but the art form is not specified, and you can come from any art form. The residency itself can be in many different formats and durations. So we have a period of time through which we want those delivered, which is from now until March of next year, March of 2026. But how that is delivered, we're very open to the artist proposing the structure. So it may be, for example, that you want to work every Friday in a community group for a period of 6 months, 9 months. Or you might want a more condensed period of time where you're working more intensively for a month-long period. We are open to all of those formats, and within our assessment, we will be looking at appropriateness and deliverability of that proposed format with what you're looking to achieve. We have obviously set out within the documentation a kind of clear overview of what we're looking to do with these residencies. So I won't read this word for word, but just to reiterate some of the really important aspects of this for us. This is about engaging audiences. So we are not looking for an artist to be working in isolation. Whilst we want it to develop the artist's practice, there is a need for that to be with communities, a co-creating, a listening, a kind of responding to. So there is some element of audience engagement within the work. It is about platforming community voices and stories. This sits within our community storytelling strand of work. So we want to make sure that what is being developed and delivered is really coming from the community, and it's sharing those voices, celebrating those stories and their relationship to the ocean. We see this particular programme of work as being either exploring co-creation or participatory methods with communities. And of course, that is a huge spectrum. So we'll understand that people might want to do that in different ways, but we will want to see an element of that co-creation or participation with the communities themselves. We do want this to develop artist practice. So we're hoping that you have ideas about things that you have done and want to push on, or that you want to experiment in different ways with, or different partners or locations. So there's lots of different ways in which this might create an opportunity to push your practice on as well. Because it is a creative digital program, we would want to see digital inputs and or outputs. So it may be that you use digital to produce the work, or it may be that the work that you produce is digital. It can be either or those things. We also have an opportunity within the residency. We have partnered with Grow Plymouth, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, because there's a way in which your work can be shared and developed within that space. We're really hoping that the residency will connect with other partners on the See for Yourself programme. So whilst this was be a residency with Plymouth Culture for the programme, the programme partners are very vast, as you will have seen, and there's opportunity to connect with locations, whether that's Tyneside or Mountbatten or Mount Edgecombe, whether that's communities across the city, so it might be in certain geographies, or it might be with partners. So you might be wanting to, have a real desire to work with the Ocean Conservation Trust, for example, or the Green Infrastructure team at the council. There's lots of different partners already engaged with this programme that you may want to specify within your application, or you might want to indicate, and we could work with you to build those relationships. The budget for each of the residencies, and we have 3 available this year. Total budget is 4,500, and that includes VAT, but also fees, accommodation, delivery, materials, production. So that's a full delivery budget. As I mentioned, we have a partnership with Grow Studios Plymouth. That is located next to the box near Tavistock Place, and it's in close proximity to both the University of Plymouth and the University Arts Plymouth. And this is an opportunity for a 3-week period per artist to either exhibit your works once they're finished, if that format works for you, or to use it as a part of the engagement process. So it may be that you want to run community workshops from here, or you want to screen information that you can engage people with, or you want to do some testing partway through your program of work. So there's quite a lot of flexibility with that space. And we will work with you, obviously, depending on your proposition, to negotiate the times and dates where that will happen and where it's most useful within your residency and Grow's wider programme of project space work. We have asked that you submit an outline budget with your application. Of course, we understand things can and will change, but this just gives us an indication of how you will be spending your time, what activities you will be looking to deliver, and whether there's sufficient allocation made to each of those. The headings are just suggestions. You can delete and add as appropriate and relevant to your proposal, so please do that. With regards to the artist fees, we believe in fair pay for artists. So it's not going to give you extra marks if you promise to deliver thousands of hours of time for, 50p an hour. In fact, we would be very uncomfortable with that proposition. So we really want to see here that your proposal for how you're going to work and when you're going to work matches an appropriate budget and spend, so that you are paying yourself as an artist and there is sufficient budget then for production and delivery. We encourage you to leave a bit of a contingency, because we all know what it's like working with partners and in ways that maybe things unfold that we hadn't anticipated. So try and set that aside. 10% is great if you can, but just a little explanation around how you've calculated that, and a useful thing to keep in place within the budget. In terms of the deliverables for each of the residency, you'll be asked a question within the application form, which is for you to sort of outline the likely outputs and impact. We're not prescribing outputs, so we're not saying you have to publish this, or it has to be an exhibition, or it has to be in this format. So there is opportunity for you to come forward with your suggestions, but just to reiterate that we do need to see a digital element, input and or output. We do want to share these. So whilst this might go into your portfolio and be on your website, we also want to share it publicly. So there's not only a need to think about the type of material you might be capturing and who you're working with, and making sure the permissions are in place to share those things, but what spaces and platforms we already have available to us. Obviously, we have web-based platforms like the Plymouth Culture website and the National Marine Park websites, and social channels. We also have spaces like Grow Plymouth, and some of our partner spaces may be available subject to what it is you want to deliver and how. We do have access to our project team, who I introduced at the start. So you will be able to get support from our producers and our project managers to help in both refining your proposition and defining the outputs and deliverables, and then also in the production side of things. What we'll do upon selection and before contracting is agree with you that process for touching base with the team, how much time on both sides will be available, and we'll add that into your artist agreement with us, so you're fully aware of the amount and type of support that you can have from the team here. So in terms of the process, following today's session, we will get this recording and any Q&A updated on our website as soon as possible, so that people have access to that. The submission deadline is the 7th of July at 12 noon. I repeat, 12 noon. So not that far away now. We have an online application form, but we do have other ways in which you can submit. So you can complete the application form as a written response, but you can also upload an audio or visual video file if you would prefer, and if you feel that better communicates your proposition. Those can both be submitted through the online form. So there's an option at the start that allows you to decide what format you would like. We can support with alternative formats. So we have easy read versions, we have BSL translation. So please just get in touch if there are other ways in which we can be flexible to both help you develop the application, but also help you submit it. My colleague Hope, and the email address is there for you. We'll be happy to hear from you and see how best we can adapt and support your needs to make it possible for you to apply. In terms of the process then, following submission, we will have both a shortlisting process and then an interview process. We will be joined by colleagues from the National Marine Park team and their wider partnership with external experts onto our shortlisting panel. They will also join us then at an interview panel. Those will take place, the shortlisting will take place week commencing the 7th of July, very shortly after we've received all of the submissions. And then our interviews will take place week beginning the 14th of July. Those will be online interviews with our panel, and we'll share information obviously in advance around the questions that we will be asking, likely times that it would take, and names of individuals on the panel. We are looking to confirm our selected artist week commencing 21st of July to give people an opportunity to start within that time frame as quickly as they might like to, but it can be delivered up till March 2026. So that is a bit of an overview of the programme. I'm going to just stop sharing and hope that doesn't close everything down, but hopefully that's okay. So we're really happy to take any questions that you might have. If the Q&A section's not available to you, then we can also use the chat function. So myself and my colleague will be looking across both the Q&A and the chat. So please do start putting any questions in there that you have. We have one that's come through, but could we give some examples of digital inputs and outputs? So yes, we could. So this is by no means exhaustive, obviously, but if you were using digital as an input, you might be getting participants to create things on iPads, or you might be getting people to capture things through film or moving image, for example. But the output itself might be a book. So the book's not digital, but the input you've used to get there and to capture is through a digital format. Alternatively, it might work the other way around, where you have very craft-based workshops, engagement with people. You might be an illustrator, you might be a dancer. So your work is not in and of itself digital, but what you would be producing as evidence of your residency and as part of capturing might be an audio file, for example, or it might be a short film or moving image that you've captured. It might be some story that we would put on social media or on our website. So you can work, you can have both inputs and outputs, or you might have one or the other where digital is present. And it's where we see digital as part of the process, and not just like, oh, I've done this thing and I'll bung it on a website, but actually where digital plays a role in forming the artwork, sharing the artwork, telling the stories. So we want to see how you've selected the choice of digital inputs, outputs, and platforms that again feel relevant to the people you're working with and the type of creative response that you're developing. Those are just a few examples. There's many more, but you get the gist, hopefully, around what we're referring to in terms of inputs and outputs. I'm going to refer to our questions. So we have another question. Will it be up to the selected artist to connect with specific community groups if they are seen as appropriate? And would it be expected that any groups the artist might want to work with would be identified in the proposal? So we would just like within the proposal an indication of whether you have existing relationships. So are you picking a community because you've already worked with them, or you already have relationships there that you want to explore further, or whether you would like to work with a group and need some support to make those connections. We are trying not, across the whole of the See for Yourself programme, just kind of parachute people into communities. So it's okay if you don't have those existing connections, but we would want to really understand why you want to work in those areas, locations, or with those communities. And we would need to work with some of our existing partners on the National Marine Park team, perhaps the rangers or the community activators within those areas to make sure that we are taking the right routes to get into those communities, not just landing or imposing, but working through some of our existing connections and connectors to make that feel a really meaningful and not extractive process for the community. So the key thing within your application is just to indicate either way, whether you have those relationships and that's why you want to work there, or whether you'd be looking for support to get that. And we have access to plenty of people already working in those spaces. So it's fine if you need support to get there. It'd be great to indicate that within the proposal. Obviously, things around your timeline then, if you're not already engaged with the community, would need to be realistic. That there will take time to build relationships, it will take time to build those connections. So again, we'd want to see that that was clear across the whole of your proposal. If you want to start on the 22nd of July and you don't have relationships in those communities, we probably suggest that's not realistic. So if you are thinking about that process and that relationship, just think about it, what it means for you in terms of lead-in time, in terms of doing some preparatory work, and then what that output might look like and when. Can you give, oh, no, that's fine. I've answered that. Sorry. So I was just saying thank you in terms of the digital outputs. We have another question here. Is it required to use all of the artist residency budget, or can just a part of it be used depending on the nature and longevity of the community development budget? So if you were to, in your proposal, say, I don't need £4,500 to do what I want to do, I just need 2,000, you could do that. We think it's quite realistic what we've put forward. And so we would just want to make sure that you're not underselling yourself or underpricing your artist fees. But if you don't need all of the budget, we can look at that. We would consider that as part of the proposal. We will not score people higher if they come in under budget, because we're not looking for a race to the bottom here. So again, it's just about whether it looks appropriate and realistic for your work and whether it's deliverable. And that's the criteria on which we'll be selecting. So yes, please, if you think you have a different budget proposition, put that forward, and we'll review that in terms of the set criteria then. Just checking questions. Can you apply in collaboration with other artists or organisations? Absolutely, yes. There is no more budget. So if you applied as 3 artists, the budget is still 4,500. So you just have to think about people's time and contribution in that space. If it's a collaboration, sort of going back to the previous question, you might already have a relationship with an organisation that you want to be a sort of resident within, and you could be identifying them as a named partner, which means they may not be looking for a proportion of the budget, but they might be working with you to help deliver it or provide access. So please do name or list those within the application and let us know whether that's confirmed or whether that's something you're keen to explore as part of the process. But collaboration is absolutely fine across this programme. Would we need to provide all of the digital equipment we might need for community engagement, e.g. iPads or other resources? So we do not have a bank of equipment that you can just sort of go into. We do know a lot of people that do. So it's not out of the question that we could help source some of that. But we need to be very clear what you are proposing. And at this point, we cannot guarantee that we would be able to access, everything and anything. So if you want the latest expensive VR headsets, we can't guarantee that we would be able to make those available or find those as part of the programme. But it doesn't mean to say we don't have contacts where we could approach people. So please just flag whether you're proposing this because you can self-manage that and you have that, or whether you'd be looking for a partner to help deliver that, which essentially we would be if you're looking for access to equipment on a semi-regular basis or within a set format. And again, we can try and make those inquiries. We would obviously, if the proposal was dependent on that, we would want to make sure we could guarantee that support before accepting you onto the programme. So we would have to do just a bit of due diligence ahead of that to make sure that we were managing your expectations as well as ours. When reading the commission brief, I saw there are specific target communities listed, and you've named a few there in terms of over 50s and schools. You're interested in working with an existing community that is not on the list. Would that be of detriment to the proposal, or is the list providing a suggestion? So the list is the target audience for the overall See for Yourself programme. So within the residency, we are not saying it has to be school children, it has to be over 55s, it has to be families. But what we are saying is we will be targeting those groups across the whole of the programme. So in this instance, if you're not looking to work with those target audiences and communities, it's unlikely that we would be able to justify the connection for funding. They're quite broad, so there's lots of scope within that, but we would be looking for a reference to, how you will reach our target audience, and there are some questions around that within the application process. So if you're saying I won't reach any of your target audiences and I'd prefer to work over here, it's unlikely that you'd meet our criteria for funding. Another question here, can the Grow Studio facilities be used, for example, 1 week per month or a couple of days per week or month across the period? So there is some flexibility. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 3-week block, but we need to negotiate that with Grow because they have obviously other users of the space and a wider programme of residencies happening. So again, an indication of where you see that fitting with the delivery method and the timelines means that we could just check realistically with Grow whether that's a viable part of their programme as well. It doesn't mean to say we'd rule you out if they say no, we can't do that. It's likely that we come back to you to say actually they can't accommodate this pattern or these dates, but they could do this instead. So I think it would just become a negotiation period of what works for the artist and what works for Grow Studios across the life of that year residency. Does the target audience's school, primary and secondary include after school provisions by external organisations? Yes, it's more of an age range. So it's school age children rather than schools. Yes, it would certainly include in and out of school provision, also kind of homeschooled children, that would be, it's more of an age range rather than an organisation connection. Will there be 3 residencies each year for the See for Yourself project? And will there be based around each year's focus? So we are looking to be able to offer similar opportunities each year. This is our first residency programme, so we will of course be evaluating and learning from this to see whether we make changes, whether there are additional partners we might want to work with like Grow, where we can create other opportunities within the residency. So there will definitely be, across the 4 years, this is our year 1, other opportunities that we put out as an open call, but the format may change slightly, or our focus might change slightly. So if we feel that we have spent a lot of time within these residencies and our wider commissioning programme, perhaps targeting certain communities, whether that's geographically or communities of interest, then we may well specify that for these ones we want to focus specifically on these locations or specifically on these communities. So be prepared for there to be a little shift in focus, but we are committed to creating these sorts of residency opportunities across all 4 years. If transport is needed for community groups, can these costs make up part of the budget? They can make up part of the budget, but please do make it clear within your budget whether those costs are for you as an artist getting around or whether it's for the community group, because there is a potentially an opportunity for us to use other funds that we have that are around accessibility, and that's accessibility for participants. So we wouldn't really want to see, a really big chunk of your artist's budget being used on other participants. We think it's very important that we address those access barriers, but we do have some other funds within our budget that we might be able to put to that if we think it's really appropriate for the programme. So please do put it in the budget, but just flag that that's for community group, or that's for participants, or that's to do with caring, transport, access needs, and we will see whether we can support that elsewhere. Is there a specific age range for engagement with the target audiences outlined in the brief, or is it open? Yeah, so if you take a look at the artist's brief, there's a section at the back that is all around context, and that outlines our target audiences. You will see from that list that some are very broad, so they're like higher education students, which doesn't have a set age range, because you can get mature students, you can have a wide range. And then there are other target audiences that are, for example, over 55s within low economic demographic. So there are some age related and others not, but that is set out in the brief. Okay. So I'm just checking across the chat and the Q&A function to see whether there's any final questions that you might have in this particular session, or if you need some clarity on anything that's already been mentioned, please do ask. It's fine for us to go over something or add further details if that's not clear for you. Is the interview in person? One stage interview, so it's not in person. It states within the brief it is online interview, and it will just be one stage. So we will be having to be, subject to how many applications we get, relatively ruthless at the shortlisting stage, and so the interview will be one stage, and we will identify our preferred 3 artists at that point. With the collaboration with external, sorry, my screen's just jumped. With the collaboration with external partners, for example, the marine rangers need to be included in the budget. We don't expect you to be paying for the marine rangers, for example, but we have a number of questions that give you an opportunity to describe what that relationship and that collaboration might be. If you're working with other artists, then that's different, and you will be negotiating what that collaboration might look like and whether they're brought in as paid specialists or alongside with artist fees. But if it's partner organisations, then we would be looking to partner you with people that don't need additional funds to pay for their work, but we would obviously be sitting alongside the work they might already be doing. That will be by negotiation, but we don't expect you to pay for things like the rangers. Okay. Question. If we're working with school-age children as part of the project, will Plymouth Culture provide any safeguarding support or frameworks, or would that be something we're expected to arrange independently? So within this particular programme of work, you won't be employed by Plymouth Culture, so you won't automatically come under our kind of employment checks and regulations. So you would be operating as a freelancer. So although we can help with templates and best practice examples and negotiating those conversations, you will have to have your things like DBS, CRB checks as a freelancer rather than as an employed member of staff. So sorry, that's an awkward answer because it's sort of a bit of both. We can support, but you will have to have your things in place to enable you to work with children. And that's as an individual artist and freelancer, but we can help with things like the forms and templates and disclaimers and permissions. If you're going for a field visit with rangers, would we fall under their public liability insurance? So we have, oh, actually I have to double check. I think we might have put insurance as an example within our budget template, but if we haven't, you will need to think about that as an artist. As I mentioned, you're not an employee. So you would be there in your capacity as a freelance artist and therefore need to have your own insurance and liability in place. The same will be true if you're running sessions, whilst the venue will have their own liability and insurances in place. You will be the person leading that, and so we'll need to have that in place. You won't automatically fall under a kind of employment strand of the work because they just wouldn't let us do that. So I think we're just about coming to the end. Oh no, every time I think we're coming to the end, we have another one. That's fine. Mentioned about the potential separate access budget for participants. Would you need a separate budget breakdown for this? So within the template. Also, if the lead artist also has access needs, would they also be able to use access budget support? So I'll start with the first one. So if you have access support needs as the lead artist, it would be great for you to just be in touch with Hope before you submit, so that we can just understand what that might look like and we can advise you on what we already have in place or what budgets we might be able to provide to have that in place so that you're really clear on what support is available to you as well. That will not be part of the application process. So we're not going to, know that you've had that conversation. It's not information we would pass to the panel. Hope will not be on our selection panel. So please do share that information and we can give you as best advice as possible. Yes, within the budget, it would be really good for you to identify that as a separate cost, and not within the artist fee element and the delivery budget. So there's plenty of scope within the document to kind of add a note at the bottom or add additional inputs that you might need, and we can obviously make an assessment about where we can support that from. If I have had funding for previous projects in Plymouth in recent years, does that affect my chances in this opportunity? So things can be evenly distributed. No, we won't be providing to the selection panel any kind of background information that is outside of the application. So we won't be saying, oh, and here's a list of things they've already been funded for, or they've already done. It may emerge within your application if you're talking about past examples or past track record. And if you think that's a useful thing to include for some framing about obviously your expertise and your work you've done before, then please do. But no, it's not going to form a kind of list of preference based on what you have or haven't done previously in a funded capacity. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview. As I've mentioned, the full brief is on the website and there is an easy read version as well. So a lot of what I've talked about in terms of the priorities and the focus are contained within that documentation. If there's anything we haven't captured today or that is unclear when you revisit those documents, please drop Hope an email. We will keep a running kind of frequently asked questions updated on the website. So if there's any other information we think it's really important to share that we haven't done so, or that's not clear, we'll make sure that that's available for people. And we will obviously share the recording as we've mentioned. But please do reach out if there's anything we haven't covered and that you think is really important before you make your submission. We know it's going to be a competitive process, so good luck with that. We're really excited to see the artists that might come forward, and we will move that process along as quickly as we can so that the selected artists can get started and start having amazing conversations with our communities about their relationship to the sea. We're already really privileged as a team to be getting into that work, and it's amazing what's going on in the city. Some of the people working on the National Marine Park are just incredible in terms of the outreach teams, the rangers. So you're really really are able to have access to an amazing range of people and skills. So enjoy, think about the process, and good luck with your submission. Thank you.